So part of what I'm trying to do on this channel is just upload raw, unfiltered information, wisdom, knowledge, whatever I can give to the world through my experiences of kind of building companies and my process of self-actualization. But I have no expectations. And no expectations. I mean, that's a subject that we could really, really dig into, because there's a lot of situations in my life where I have no expectations. As far as expectations for the company, somebody asked me recently, what does winning look like? I said, I don't know. I only know what progress looks like. I don't know what winning looks like. Is that a revenue number? Is that a certain number of employees? Is that a certain amount of distribution? Is that a certain amount of market share? Is that a certain amount of profit, operating income, EBITDA? Like I don't know. I only know what progress looks like. I'm not sorry. Interrupted with a Monday morning phone call. That's probably going to happen a few more times. Talking about like not running towards something, but running from something. What? Well, breaking the cycle, like normal shit you would think about when you grew up in the woods of Maine. You didn't have too much. Your mom was on welfare. I'm kind of running from that and towards the unknown. The unknown for me, man, I get a dopamine hit. Like I get a chemical release when I think about the unknown. When I think about, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen next year, in 5 years, in 10 years. I just can cast a long-term strategic vision, and I can see myself there. I can visualize that. I can see it. And there's all this new information on manifestation, like, oh, if you think about it, you can manifest it. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of truth behind that. Like I've been visualizing and manifesting since I was a teenager. My lacrosse coach used to have me walk in the dead of winter in bare feet and shorts through the snow and just mind over matter. It was kind of one of his ways he taught me about how strong my mind is versus the pain that you feel through your body and how that can influence your mind. And so I've always believed in visualization. I visualized when I was playing sports in high school, college, like seeing the shot, how I'm going to hold the stick in lacrosse, shooting the basketball, the way I'm going to move, like closing my eyes and visualize it. Have you ever seen that clip of, I think it's the Blue Angels, and they're sitting around like a conference table, and they've got their eyes closed, and they're like flying the jet, which is an extremely dangerous thing to be doing, right? Well, that's the power of visualization. They're going through the motions in their mind, and I believe if you can see it in your mind's eye, it's possible. I believe if you can see it in your mind's eye and you're taking steps towards, if you're taking action towards that, then it is possible. It's all possible. And so there's no obstacles. There's no obstacles. It's a big puzzle, and that puzzle can go together lots of different ways. It's not all pieces need to like snap in exactly where they're supposed to, because there's a lot of paths you can take. But if you set that out there, if you set that goal, that vision, you can visualize it in your mind. You're taking action towards it, and you ultimately know where you're going. Like I know by 2030, I want to be building a new factory. I want to be building a campus, a destination location in Maine. I know in 2035, I'd like to do $1 billion in annual revenue. And that number is there because I know how many people it'll take to employ and how many factories we're going to need to do that type of revenue. And I know that's meaningful for America. Like, to have a business of that size 100% on an American supply chain is absolutely insane. I don't think there's another brand in footwear and apparel that's ever done $1 billion on an American supply chain. So we're gonna move towards that. And then beyond that, if there's a 100-year plan, like what is beyond that? I don't know. It honestly doesn't matter. What matters is that you're driving a healthy business, a healthy enterprise. And one of the comments in one of these YouTube videos was how you deal with finance. How has finance influenced your business? And I can tell you there's two ways a business can die, and one of those ways is you run out of cash. And I've got to go grab something, and I'm going to come back here in a second, and I'm going to unpack that for you, how I've dealt with finance and cash over the years. All right, back. I had to go get Amanda's computer. She stepped outside of her routine this morning, and she made a cappuccino for us on Monday morning. She never does that. I've tried to convince her in the past, but she just doesn't do it. And she literally said, because I did this, it's going to screw up my routine. And it certainly did, because I got her computer right here. I hate routines. She lives by routines. I think, to balance out my video about not having routines, you need somebody in your life, in your business, that has routines. Like that's real important, especially if you're entrepreneurial. So somebody to organize things around you as you move through life. Anyway, she's that for me. But let me get back on this finance thing. And I don't want to spend the whole freaking morning talking about this because it's Monday. We just ran that 4 Days of Freedom sale. This is the last day, this Monday, the Moab Monday. We've kind of getting close to our goal. We're trying to find an accretive $800,000 of revenue in these 4 days that will de-risk our July plan. We're about 650 grand of the way there. And so I need to sit with a team today. I need to talk about the kind of where they think we're going to end and just get the insights from the weekend. I want to know, how many customers were new customers versus existing customers. I want to learn about conversion rate. I want to learn about top products. I want to know what the blended margin was. Like, okay, so they took advantage of the discount. They took advantage of the deal. They got the $75 jean. What else did they buy with the $75 jean? Did they buy this product and this product at full margin? And so that blended margin was still high. Like I need to understand all these things as an operator. I need to understand the finance side, the margin profile. And finance, I told you I fell in love with finance after I hired my first my first CFO, Don Miller. And I would every morning I would go into my office, and we basically shared an office. When I hired him, he was the first executive. Actually, I haven't hired another executive. He was the first executive I ever hired. And he was like the most expensive position I had ever hired too, right? I'm such in this eat what you kill mindset for so many years. Paying somebody like a chunky salary was a really foreign idea to me. I remember calling Jocko and saying, hey Jocko, I think I need to hire a CFO. And he's like, well, why do you think that? And Jocko's always really good about, asking why. He doesn't really give an opinion. He listens very well, and he's one of my best friends, but also business partners. But he's a really good listener, right? So I'm like, well, this isn't my core competency, finance. I don't know. I'm a brand guy. I'm a marketer. I'm a storyteller. I'm a visionary type of guy, right? Finance is not in my wheelhouse. And I could have used that as an excuse to just abandon all the potential learnings I could have having a genius finance guy sitting next to me. Now, when I say a genius finance guy, I put out a job description on Indeed, and we had hundreds of applicants. And so those applicants, then we made take a test, right? A finance test. And there were like five that passed the test that were expert finance folk. And of those five, one of them was 3 hours away. And that one was willing to move to Maine. And And so that's Don. He's been with us for, 6 years now, I think, going on 7. And now he's the CFO of Jocko Fuel, and also an investor in Jocko Fuel. So he's also my business partner now. But talking to Jocko, I remember like, yeah, I think we need this position. I don't want to screw up again. I don't want to screw up the finance thing again. Now remember, actually, if you don't know, if you're new to the channel or new to kind of this story, I had lost everything in the 2008, 2009 recession. I was a young mid-20s, kind of entrepreneurial kid. I had a media company, a handful of employees, and I lost 65% of my business overnight. Like overnight, shit shut off. I went to the bank, I took out a $20,000 line of credit. Now that $20,000, it could have been $2 million bucks. Could have been $10 million bucks. Like it was more money than I had ever known, and it was a big deal. And I had to personally guarantee this $20,000 line of credit, and it was the first line of credit I ever had. Now I started my journey by taking out a $2,000 loan from this bank here in town, Franklin Savings Bank, and that was in the early 2000s, maybe 2002, right? And I used that money to renovate an old chicken barn on the property I grew up on to create an office for myself. I had a young son. He was maybe a year old. Didn't have my daughter yet. So we were just young kids. And so I had established with this bank a rapport. Now, they wouldn't give me the $2,000 loan at first. I didn't have any assets. I didn't have any credit cards yet, so I didn't have any credit card debt. It was literally just a young, 21, 22-year-old kid. And the only reason I got the loan for $2,000 was because we're from the area, and my wife's family called them and like, what are you guys doing? Give this freaking kid a loan, right? So just the relationships, and relationships are so important when it comes to finance. And we're going to talk about that. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because the bank is not your enemy. The bank is not your adversary. The bank is your partner. The bank is your partner. Yeah, they're going to get their cut. You look at them like a business partner, like you're paying them as a business partner. They're going to give you the cash. They're going to give you the funding that you need. And you're going to pay them as a partner, a distribution. That's called interest. So you're going to pay them the distribution of interest for giving you the cash so you can go and execute and realize your dreams, your vision. The bank is your partner, number one. Damn, it's going to be a hot day out today. I'm going to just turn this AC on. I'm at the factory, but I'm going to give you a little bit more insight before I go in here. So I had this relationship with this bank, and then in my business, the same business they lent me $2,000 for, now was falling apart, and I didn't know what pivot meant, and I didn't know what to do. So all I knew is I don't want to fire all these people. I don't want to like cut them all loose. This handful of employees. So let me go get a line of credit so I can continue making payroll. And in the interim, I had those folks working on in-house projects, and they had no idea, and I didn't share with them that we had lost most of our business almost overnight. And they got pretty bitter to the fact they were working on Pete projects, is what they called them. And so one day, shortly thereafter, they got up, they handed me a letter and basically said, we want to take over the company, like unionize the company, and your kids can't, your son and now newborn daughter can't come into the office. It was hilarious, but disturbing, that I had been such a bad leader that this is something that they chose to do. I then got my vehicle, I drove to all their homes, and I basically gave them the option, come back to work, and this is your one mulligan. I'll forgive you this one time, or you don't have a job. And they had made a pact that none of them would talk to me. I met them Monday morning at the bottom of the stairs of the office, I had scraped all their shit into trash bags, and I handed it to them one by one. Haven't talked to them since. And I knew at that point I was going to put myself in a shitty financial position. I didn't have a good plan leading up to that point. I didn't have a good plan to pivot to. I was now in debt with the bank in a line of credit, paying their weekly salaries, and didn't know what to do. I was a very young entrepreneur. I didn't know anything about finance. It was just a stage one business that then died. And after that, it was difficult. It was difficult because my wife was working as a librarian, because she was now the breadwinner, making $17,000 a year. It's $17,000 a year. We were on state aid for healthcare. It's just a really embarrassing situation for a kid that grew up with a mom on welfare. It was something I was running from. I was running away from that. I wanted more out of life, and then I found myself in the same position. So really shitty position. And I'll tell you, all of these things, when you distill it down, finance is a huge component to that. You can't just hope something is going to work out. Now, you can have faith something is going to work out. You can pray for something to work out. But it's naive to think that those two things are going to put you in a position to win. You have to move towards those things in your head. I think that's really important. You got to walk through the snow in bare feet and purge it from your mind, the pain. Okay? And so I took this lesson when I started Origin from my basement. I took this lesson with me that I'll never let kind of this financial situation to ever get in front of me again. And I'll tell you what, over the years we've come very close to being in tricky situations. Whether you're doing $1 million in sales or $100 million in sales, you're just adding more zeros. And the problems, although some of them go away through organization and systems and processes, you're just adding more zeros. You're carrying more overhead. You have more machinery. It's more and more and more. But the problems are the same. Hopefully, though, you can see further ahead. And I think that's what's important about finance, is it allows you to see further ahead, and it doesn't abandon you in the moment you need it most, right? So cash flow forecasts are important. You have to have a plan to hit those cash flow forecasts. If you're not trending, you have to recognize what the lead indicator is to that, because you don't want lag indicators, right? And so finance is really important. And so I sat with Don in my office for a long time, every morning, for years, and we would talk about the numbers. And I fell in love with the numbers, like I'm in love with walking through the Louvre to look at artwork and sculpture, right? Like, I love artwork. I love art and sculpture. Well, I started looking at numbers that way also. I love how these numbers fit together. I love how they feed off one another. I love how it all works. And so I fell in love with it. And I didn't even really force myself to fall in love with it. There was somebody there that was in love with numbers, and I fed off their excitement. And so having somebody in your network, having a partner, having a way to fall in love with numbers is my recommendation for someone struggling with finance who pushes it out of their head until month's end, and then needs to go back through and scrape it all together and make something out of it. All right? Don't do that. Fall in love with the numbers like you fell in love with your business, like you fell in love with your ideas, right? That's where the magic is. You gotta know your numbers. And when the numbers aren't trending well, you've got to have a plan. You got to have a plan, a B plan, and a C plan. And trust me, I have been on the edge so many times. I've remortgaged my house. I've had to put personal cash up to expand line of credits. I had 70 investor meetings with private equity over the course of 2 years, and on Jocko Fuel, because Jocko Fuel was growing so much and we were burning cash. But it's always in my head, the numbers, the dollars, the health of the company, knowing that a business will die if you run out of cash. It'll die. So, fall in love with the numbers is my recommendation. Listen, we can talk more about this another time. Post any more questions below, because I could go so many different ways with this conversation. I could tell you about going into New York City. They call it the Big Apple. People don't realize that in the Big Apple there's a wormhole, right? And it's a scary wormhole. We could go on leadership. We could go on when the right timing is to do certain things. We can talk about matching your business to your revenue. We could talk about like where to take risk, where to apply pressure. All these things are things that we can unpack. But to scale from, here's the BJJ widow. Here you go, babe. You're on camera. I got a meeting in a couple minutes. To scale from, I like to say I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together or a bucket to piss in when I started Origin. And to scale from that, right, from an idea to over $200 million right now in annual revenue. Next year, probably looking at, 250 to 300, and then probably another year or two after that, 500, right? So it's like a big enterprise, a compounding enterprise. To scale from 0 to that number, I paid a lot of tuition. I can't even explain the amount of tuition I paid. Millions of dollars. Last year alone, tuition cost $6 million. All right, on Origin we lost $6 million. I'll explain that one to you too. So I've only learned through paying the tuition and testing and learning, and I'm going to give it all to you for free. So if you have questions, just post below in the comments and we can unpack whatever you want. I got to go get in this meeting. This is going to be a long one. Holy shit, I've been talking for 20 minutes. I'm going to bring you inside the war room again so we can discuss how things turned out, knowing that we also have today, Moab Monday, to finish this 4 days of freedom. All right. Fellas?
What's up? What up?
You used to this thing? Oh, you got the new camp shirt on. What do you think?
Camp shirt, Moab, because it's Moab Monday.
It is Moab Monday.
Statesman, camp shirt.
It looks a little bit big. Feels. What do you think?
This, look, so
Yeah.
we need to
The bubbles.
shrink the gap, maybe add another button.
Yeah.
Right? Something like that.
For sure.
I think these, so typically speaking, you want to be able to roll these to the crease of your elbow.
Did you unbutton both buttons?
And yeah. But so this, you need not even a 1/4 inch.
Yeah.
Like the hole here. And then
That's my biggest pet peeve with those kind of shirts. If you can't roll them and it like stay tight,
yeah.
they're dead to me.
Yeah. And
They're
then-
dead to me.
Yeah. Give them away.
That's my line.
I know, and I'm gonna use it.
But for first pass, I mean, really good. Check out the embroidery. See it?
Yeah, hold on right there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Nice little touch.
That is cool.
And then
Yes.
the logo, the lockup. I mean, first pass, and then look at the look, the merchandise look. Like that's a good. It's a,
Statesman Chelsea.
Now that you stand up, it is a little.
it's a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or when you sit down, those buttons open up though.
Yeah.
And
We gotta.
What size is it?
Yeah. Medium.
Schmeat, it's a Schmeat. No, it's
And
actually
also you're
bigger than a
That's
medium.
a medium.
I would have thought that was
No,
large.
large.
I would've thought it was
smaller.
large, too.
Yeah.
you're also more flat, Phil. So if it stays flat on you, and opens up on you, me being more round,
Oh, yeah,
that thing is going to.
The minute you.
I put that thing on, it's going to be
It's
like
gonna open.
burr.
Yeah.
You know.
Anyone with a belly is that.
Right, exactly.
It's gonna extend.
Yeah.
All right, JP, I literally just talked on this freaking thing for 20 minutes. 20 minutes. So,
Do you think for somebody else to say something?
tell me, where are we going to end up? Your prediction was what?
800.
Your prediction was, okay, you were at 850 then, Phil.
I'm still at 800.
You're still at 800? You're still there? Oh, that's good. Phil,
I'll tell you, hold on. Updated.
let me see that eye, dude. So weird.
If we do 200K today, we will finish at 861.
And your estimate was 850?
Yeah.
You talk incremental or for the weekend?
Just for the weekend.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about for the 4 days, where we're going to end up for the 4 days.
It's at 800 to 1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But I know your call was 800, his was 850. That would be a pretty good 4-day sprint.
We will have de-risked. We will have taken nearly $500,000 out of July.
So here's what the team's discussing as we saw a lot of risk in July. We've been talking about it for freaking 6 months. We have a great plan. We have a boat shoot. Well, actually, check this out. This is the new Bison boat shoe. I'm actually taking this to France this weekend. I'm taking this, the GTFO pants, the stow jacket, taking a bunch of stuff and go all through France to the south of France, all the way back up to freaking Dunkirk. If you've ever seen the movie Dunkirk. But these boat shoes are launching tomorrow. And what else do we have in the plan for July?
July 4th heat.
And we have a
Guy
July.
and Rashka.
All right, Guy and
The early
Rashka.
indicators that those may exceed forecast.
Oh, that'd be good. If we've never won a July, so we're going to win this July, and we're going to do it with new product and good merchandising, and meeting people where they need to be met in the season. I think that's really important. We've failed at this in the past, but knowing we failed in the past, instead of like kind of sitting back saying, "Oh, our plan is great. We've got the best plan." We were like, "Yeah, let's try to de-risk it," knowing we've never won a July. Let's de-risk it. So we ran this play, this 4 days of freedom. Should get it in accretive. Accretive means in addition to our baseline plan, accretive $800,000 to $1 million. And because of that, what we've done is we've started July basically removing $500,000 of the need, right? Of the finance need. So Tom, right there, where is he? He's up there somewhere. So he can pay the bills, which is important. Do you want to say hi to the people? Are you looking forward to France? Got a lot of work this week. No joke. I literally shut this thing off and just turned it on. 9 hours later. 9 hours in the same seat. One of those days. Mondays. The meeting dragged on into a lot of different things, and instead of stretching it out over 2 days, I decided to do it all in one day. You know, everybody has a dream when you're a kid, and this what I'm on right now, this is the camp road. So when I was a young kid, if you lived on the camp road, then you lived on the lake. And growing up and being an entrepreneur, like people have dreams. Some people want to fly around in private jets and own expensive cars and travel the world. For me, it was at some point in my life buying a piece of property on the lake, and we were able to achieve that dream, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, something like that. And now it's my sanctuary. I come down here to think, I come down here to write. It's kind of the last bit of civilization, really remote and phenomenal. And I think when I when I look at not necessarily goals, like it was a dream of mine to be on the lake, right? That was a dream. I had a best friend, and his family was on the lake, and his parents were super successful. They had nice things. They took trips, everything I didn't have growing up. And so that was motivation for me as I became an entrepreneur. I knew that being in business was the only way I would find that type of a life. And I think it's important, even if there's not an end game for what you're doing, even if there's not even if you don't know where you're going, that there are things that you achieve, right? Like there are things you achieve, whether that's retiring your parents, whether that's paying off your college education, or being able to pay for your kids' education, or taking a trip, traveling to Europe for 2 weeks, a couple times a year, or finding a place on the lake. I think it's important to have those things, because being an entrepreneur and being a business, the business is supposed to work for you. Ultimately, you only go into business because you can't do the things you want in life otherwise. That's why you go into business. And so many people, they're working for their business and not on their business, and so they're a slave to their business, and so their business doesn't work for them. And it's not going to. Ultimately, you will be a slave to your business. Hopefully, probably at least for the first 3 years, but hopefully not indefinitely. Hopefully, you have a plan that is scalable, and you can see the outcome, even if it's in 5 years or 10 years. So that's a reason to be in business, not just because you don't fit in the box, but also because you want to do something, or you want something in life, whether for yourself or somebody else, or your family, that you couldn't otherwise do building somebody else's dream. And so I think those goals are really important to keep you focused. It's almost like markings along the path, right? Having these things, be it I want to pay for my child's education so they can start their life debt-free. These are moments along your path, leading you down the path towards whatever this thing is ultimately you're trying to get. So anyways, just a few words of wisdom after this very long day. When I got off this morning, I spent 9 hours, 10 hours in that same room, in that same chair. And I said, man, I need to go clear my head and go into nature. And so now I'm here down at my camp, out in the woods, going into nature to grill and chill. I'm gonna grill and chill. That's what I'm talking about right there. That's a little way to end a long ass day. This is Colorado craft beef. They say you can tell how done it is by touching the palm of your hand, right? This is like probably a little more than I want done, but the freaking grill caught on fire. It's still smoking, and yeah, it is what it is. Just happy to have Colorado craft beef because it's the best freaking beef in the world. While I let that steak set for 10 minutes. Remember, you cook steak, number one, you got to cook it room temperature. Don't take it from the fridge and stick it on the grill or whatever you're cooking it on. Number two, then let it sit for 10 minutes after, and so the juices can soak back in. I didn't really get to finish the finance conversation from this morning, but and my day got away from me, so I apologize because I've been doing recalibration sessions with the team, with my direct reports, and then all their team, and it happens twice a year. and it's a pain in the ass, and I hate it. I actually want to find a way to make reviews go completely away. I do think as a leader, if you build the right team and they're good leaders, you should never have reviews because you're constantly in a review cycle, because there's alignment and there's no silos in your business units. And it's a theory I've yet to test, but I think I will test it at some point. But back to the finance conversation from about 12 hours ago now, maybe. The bottom line is this. You have to have a love affair with finance. You have to have a love affair with the numbers. You have to fall in love with the numbers, just like you do your business, just like you do with your entrepreneurial seizures, all the stuff in your head, right? You're in love with that stuff. But if you're not in love with your finances, if you're not in love with the numbers, you got to know your numbers. You are setting yourself up for failure. So for the person that asked about finance in one of the comments on YouTube, that is my information. And have a love affair with the numbers. And now I'm going to go fall in love with this steak. So peace.